The flames rose high into the purple sky of Vexor Prime, and somewhere in the burning wreckage of what used to be a beautiful city, a man named Marcus Cole sat against a broken wall and cleaned his rifle. He was 63 years old. His hair had turned gray long ago, and his knees hurt when the weather changed. But his hands were steady, and his eyes were still sharp. Marcus had been a soldier on Earth for 30 years. He had fought in the African wars, the Asian conflicts, and the terrible battles of the European crisis. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies. He had done things that still haunted his dreams. When he finally retired, he wanted nothing more than peace and quiet. But the universe had other plans. The Crethans came to Earth 5 years ago. They were tall, gray-skinned creatures with 4 arms and coal-black eyes. They conquered planets for resources, for slaves, for sport. Earth fought back harder than any world they had ever seen. But in the end, technology won over courage. Humanity was broken, scattered, enslaved. Marcus was captured and sent to the labor camps on Vexor Prime. He worked in the mines for 3 years, digging up crystals that powered Crethan weapons. He watched humans die from exhaustion, from beatings, from despair. And something inside him started to burn again. That was when he met Zara. She was a young Vexorian, barely 20 in her species years. Her people had been conquered long before humans arrived. They had blue skin, large silver eyes, and delicate features that made them look fragile. But Zara was not fragile. She was angry. "You are the human they talk about," she said to Marcus one night in the mines. "The one who killed 3 guards with a pickaxe." Marcus shrugged. They heard a child. Zara studied him for a long moment. "My people have forgotten how to fight. We surrendered so quickly that we never learned resistance. But you humans are different. War is all we know," Marcus said bitterly. "Then teach us," Zara whispered. "Teach us to fight back." That conversation changed everything. Marcus started small. He taught a few trusted Vexorians how to move quietly, how to watch guard patterns, how to make weapons from scraps. He found other humans in the camps, veterans like himself, who remembered their training. Together, they formed the core of something new. The Burning Resistance, they called themselves. The name came from the fires they set in Crethan supply depots, the flames that lit up the night sky and gave hope to slaves who had forgotten what hope felt like. Marcus became their leader, though he never wanted the title. He was just a tired old soldier who wanted to see his enemies pay for what they did. But the people around him saw something more. They saw a man who knew how to turn chaos into order, how to transform despair into determination. "You are different from our leaders," an elderly Vexorian named Tellus told him one day. "Our commanders always stood in the back and gave orders. You stand in the front and share our danger." Marcus shook his head. "A leader who won't risk what his soldiers risk isn't a leader. He's a coward with a fancy title." This philosophy spread through the resistance like wildfire. Humans taught Vexorians how to fight, and Vexorians taught humans about the planet, the terrain, the weak points in Crethan defenses. 2 broken peoples became one unbreakable force. The Crethans did not understand what was happening at first. They had conquered dozens of worlds, and resistance always faded within a generation. The conquered learned to obey, to serve, to accept their fate. But these humans refused to break. Commander Vrath, the Crethan governor of Vexor Prime, called an emergency meeting with his officers. "The humans are infecting the other slaves with their madness," he said. "They fight even when there is no hope of victory. They die with smiles on their faces. This is not rational behavior. Their leader is an old male," one officer reported. "He should be weak, ready for death. Instead, he fights like a creature possessed." Vrath slammed his 4 fists on the table. "Find him. Kill him. The others will fall apart without their leader." But Marcus had learned long ago how to avoid being found. He moved constantly, slept in different places every night, and trusted only a small circle of people with his location. More importantly, he trained others to lead in his absence. "I won't live forever," he told Zara and his other lieutenants. "This resistance has to be bigger than me. If I die tomorrow, you keep fighting. You understand?" Zara nodded, but her silver eyes were troubled. "You speak of death too easily." Marcus smiled, and for a moment, he looked every one of his 63 years. "I've made peace with death, little one. Made peace with it a long time ago. What I haven't made peace with is slavery. What I haven't made peace with is watching good people suffer under the boots of tyrants." The resistance grew faster than anyone expected. Word spread from camp to camp, from city to city. Slaves who had spent decades in chains suddenly remembered that they could fight. Crethan supply lines were raided. Communication towers were destroyed. Weapons were stolen and distributed. Marcus used tactics that confused and frustrated the Crethans. He never attacked where they expected. He never fought battles he couldn't win. He made the enemy afraid of shadows, afraid of every slave who passed them in the halls. "This is what we call guerrilla warfare," he explained to his fighters. "We're not strong enough to face them directly, so we don't. We bite them like mosquitoes over and over, until they bleed to death from 1,000 tiny wounds." The Vexorians were amazed by human military thinking. They had no history of prolonged warfare, no culture of resistance. But they learned quickly, and they were motivated by generations of suppressed anger. Telos, the elderly Vexorian, became one of Marcus's most trusted advisors. "Your people have been fighting each other for thousands of years," he observed. "This is a tragedy, but it has given you knowledge that no other species possesses." "We're experts at killing," Marcus agreed grimly. "Never thought that skill would save anyone's soul." 6 months after the resistance began, they achieved their first major victory. They captured a Crethan weapons depot, killing 50 guards and seizing enough supplies to arm 200 more fighters. The news spread across Vexor Prime like lightning. For the first time in a century, the Crethans faced a real threat to their control. And at the center of that threat stood a gray-haired human who should have been enjoying his retirement on a planet that no longer existed. Marcus Cole looked at the burning depot, at the cheering fighters around him, at the hope in their eyes. He felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had never asked to be a leader again. He had never wanted this burden. But some fires, once lit, could not be extinguished. The resistance had begun, and it would not stop until freedom was won or every last rebel was dead. The second year of the burning resistance was harder than the first. Commander Vrath had called for reinforcements from the Crethan homeworld, and 10,000 fresh soldiers arrived on Vexor Prime. They came with better weapons, better armor, and orders to crush the rebellion at any cost. Marcus watched the enemy ships land from a hidden position in the mountains. Zara stood beside him, her blue face pale with worry. "They have so many," she whispered. "Numbers don't win wars," Marcus replied. "Hearts do. We have something to fight for. They're just following orders." But even Marcus knew the situation was dire. They needed to change tactics, to grow stronger, to find new allies. And he had a plan that his lieutenants thought was crazy. "We're going to contact the other conquered worlds," he announced at their next council meeting. "The Crethans have enemies everywhere. We just need to unite them." "That's impossible," said a human fighter named Jackson. "The Crethans control all communication systems." Marcus smiled. "They control the official systems. But there are others. The slave ships that transport workers between worlds. The merchants who trade in the black markets. Information can travel if you know where to send it. It took 3 months, but they did it. Messages went out to 7 different planets, all bearing the same simple words. We are the burning resistance of Vexor Prime. We fight. Join us. The responses came slowly at first. A raid on a Crethan outpost here, a supply line sabotaged there. But within 6 months, the flames of rebellion had spread to 3 new worlds. The Crethan Empire, for the first time in its history, faced coordinated resistance across multiple systems. Commander Vrath was recalled to the homeworld in disgrace. His replacement was a female Crethan named Silix, known throughout the Empire as the Executioner. She had crushed rebellions before, always with brutal efficiency. Silix arrived on Vexor Prime with a simple strategy: public executions. For every Crethan killed by rebels, she would execute 10 slaves. She believed that terror would break the resistance where force had failed. The first executions happened in the central plaza of the capital city. 50 innocent slaves lined up and killed while crowds were forced to watch. Marcus received the news in his mountain hideout, and something in his face changed. "This is my fault," he said quietly. "They died because of what we started." Zara grabbed his arm. "No, they died because the Crethans are monsters. We did not kill them. Silix did." But Marcus could not shake the guilt. He had seen this before on Earth, in a dozen conflicts where innocent people paid for the violence of others. It was the terrible mathematics of war, and he had never found a way to balance the equation. Still, he could not stop now. Stopping would mean those deaths had been meaningless. The only way to honor the fallen was to win. Marcus called all his lieutenants together for the most important meeting of the resistance. "We need to end this quickly," he said. "Every day we fight, more innocents die. We need a decisive strike." "Against what target?" Jackson asked. Marcus pointed to a map of the planet, the power grid. "The Crethans run everything through a central facility. Shields, communications, weapon systems. If we take it down, even for a few hours, they'll be vulnerable. That facility is the most heavily guarded place on the planet," Tellus observed. "Yes," Marcus agreed. "Which is why we're going to need every fighter we have. And we're going to need help from above." He explained the rest of his plan. It was bold, desperate, and required perfect timing. If it worked, they could cripple the Crethan occupation. If it failed, the resistance would be destroyed. The attack came on the anniversary of Earth's fall, a date that Marcus had chosen deliberately. Fighters from across the planet moved toward the power facility, traveling in small groups to avoid detection. In space, ships from 3 allied resistance movements waited at the edge of the system, ready to strike when the shields fell. Marcus led the ground assault himself. Zara and Tellus had begged him to stay behind, to coordinate from safety. He refused. "I started this," he said. "I'll see it through." The battle was fierce and bloody. Crethan defenders fought with desperate courage, knowing that their entire occupation depended on holding the facility. Resistance fighters fell by the dozens, then by the hundreds, but they kept coming. Marcus fought alongside his people, his old rifle in his hands. He took a wound to his shoulder, but kept moving. He saw Zara cut down 3 guards with a blade she had forged herself. He saw Tellus, elderly and frail, manning a captured weapon system and bringing down enemy aircraft. In the end, it came down to a small team reaching the central control room. Marcus was with them, though he was bleeding and exhausted. They planted explosives, set the timers, and ran. The explosion shook the entire planet. The power grid failed. Shields dropped across Vexor Prime, and the Allied fleet jumped into the system, their weapons hot and ready. The liberation of Vexor Prime took 3 more days. Commander Silix tried to flee, but was captured by her own slaves, who handed her over to the resistance for trial. The last Crethan soldiers surrendered when they realized that reinforcements would never arrive. Marcus Cole watched the final Crethan flag come down from the roof of the government building. He was sitting in a chair because he could no longer stand. His wounds had been bandaged, but he had lost a lot of blood. He was 65 years old now, and the war had taken everything he had left to give. Zara knelt beside him, tears streaming down her blue face. "We did it," she said. "We won." Marcus smiled weakly. "You won. Your people won. This is your victory now. Yours to build on. You are our leader," she insisted. "You must stay, help us rebuild. But Marcus shook his head. I'm a soldier, little one. I know how to break things, not fix them. The fighting is done. Now you need builders, dreamers, healers. That's not me. Over the next few months, as Vexor Prime began its long journey toward freedom, Marcus Cole became something he never expected, a symbol. Other conquered worlds, inspired by the burning resistance, rose up against the Crethan Empire. The war spread across the galaxy, and everywhere it went, people spoke of the old human soldier who had shown them how to fight. Marcus lived long enough to see the Crethan Empire sue for peace. He was 70 years old when the treaty was signed, frail and weak, but still sharp-eyed. Representatives from a dozen liberated worlds came to honor him, calling him the avatar of the burning resistance, the leader who transformed chaos into hope. He died peacefully in his sleep, 3 months after the treaty, surrounded by friends from both human and alien species. His last words were to Zara, who had become the elected leader of the free Vexorian people. "Keep burning," he whispered. "Never let the fire go out." They built a statue of him in the central plaza where Silex had held her executions. It showed an old man with a rifle, looking not fierce or heroic, but tired and determined. At the base, they carved words in 100 languages. He taught us that chains are only as strong as our fear. He showed us that hope is a fire that tyrants can never extinguish. He was Marcus Cole, and he reminded the universe what humanity means. The Crethan Empire eventually collapsed, broken by the countless rebellions that Marcus had inspired. The freed peoples formed a new alliance, one based on cooperation and mutual defense. Humans, once the newest victims of Crethan conquest, became respected members of this alliance. And on every world that had known slavery, they celebrated a holiday called Burning Day. On that day, people lit fires and told stories about an old soldier from a small planet called Earth who refused to accept defeat. Because some humans carry fire in their souls. And once that fire starts to burn, nothing in the universe can put it out.